Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kev's Movie Corner. I am Kev, and this week we are talking about It Happened One Night. This movie was released in 1934. It has a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I think that's considered certified fresh. I don't know exactly what level that becomes certified fresh, but 98% on Rotten Tomatoes and an 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb. Brief synopsis from IMDb is a rogue reporter trailing a runaway heiress for a big story joins her on a bus heading from Florida to New York, and they end up stuck with each other when the bus leaves them behind at one of the stops along the way. So, yes, that is what happens. But it's only like the first, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. So it's an interest, it leaves out a lot, which is, fine. But this movie was directed by Frank Capra. It stars Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. Frank Capra is also known for a couple other movies that we've talked about on here before. It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which I like both of those movies, so, good on this one. This movie was kind of a wild ride. It's considered a romantic comedy. It also says screwball comedy, like a romantic comedy. That's basically what it is. Claudette Colbert plays Ellie Andrews, and at the start of the movie, she's on a boat with her dad, because her dad doesn't want her to get married. Well, her dad doesn't like that she went off and quietly got married to King Wesley, is the character's name, plays by Jameson Thomas. But he doesn't like that she went off and got married, so he's basically trying to get rid of that marriage. He's trying to annul the marriage, and he's holding her on this boat off of Miami, and won't let her leave. And she's mad at him because she says she's in love and all this kind of stuff. And eventually she gets mad enough. This is the first 30, 45 seconds of the movie. She gets mad enough that she jumps off the boats and runs away. So that's where this whole runaway heiress thing. Her dad is a big shot Wall Street banker, so he's got a crap ton of money. Obviously, they're on their own yacht in the middle of the water. So, but anyway, she ends up he hires everybody to go find her and chase her. A bunch of detectives and everybody across the country. He puts out ads in newspapers to try to find her, and meanwhile, she's trying to get from Miami to New York without anybody noticing. And Peter Warren, who is Clark Gable's character, meets this girl, finds her pretty, whatever, all that kind of meet cute thing, and then eventually learns who she is, and he kind of acts like he doesn't like her. He's not a fan of her type of person, her personality, her rich, kind of snooty, which she kind of is in the beginning. She's kind of she's out of touch, and she's kind of snooty. But he ends up helping her, or trying to help her get to New York. And they, like it said, they kind of run into trouble when the bus leaves them behind in one location, and they're trying to, at one point they're trying to hitchhike, and they're trying to get there without any money, because she doesn't want to call her dad to get money, and he doesn't really have that much money. So they're going on their way, trying to kind of dupe and trick people into letting them get there, but things keep happening along the way. They end up stopping at a couple of hotels, or they call them road, or I don't remember exactly what they call them, but it's like basically like a motor lodge, basically is what it is, like a motel or whatever. Um, he stop at a couple of those. Every time they stop at one of those, he names her as his wife so they can get a cabin together. And he always hangs a string and puts up a blanket in between them to kind of give them privacy, which he calls the walls of Jericho, um, which is comical, and it comes into play at the very end of this movie as well. Um, but anyway, they're trying to get to New York. They kind of go through all this uh, ridiculousness as they're trying to get there. They end up having somebody try to steal their stuff, and they end up stealing his car and driving part of the way there, which is comical. But they kind of, over the time that they're traveling together, they fall for each other. She ends up falling for him. He ends up falling for her, even though he's trying to play it off that he doesn't actually like her. And she kind of tries to play it the same way a little bit, but she ends up. They end up getting close to New York. He decides that he's going to ask her to marry him and leave the man that she's with, which she says she wants to. She wants to go with him instead after they've spent several days together. And so he takes off in the middle of the night while she's sleeping to go get money to try to buy her or try to propose. And she doesn't realize this and thinks that he left her and calls her daddy and calls her dad, and he comes and gets her, and then they kind of separate for a little while. She goes back to her life. At this point, her dad has, in order to get her back, has warmed up to King Wesley, who he didn't agree with his daughter marrying in the first place. So he's kind of warmed back up to that. But he wants a real wedding, so they end up throwing this big, huge wedding in New York. King Wesley flies in on a helicopter plane thing and by himself, and a bunch of other stuff to kind of make a big show of an entrance. But before she gets married, Peter finds out that she's left and is like, oh, okay, well, she doesn't want to have anything to do with me. So they kind of, at this point, they kind of think, even though they both talked about, caring for each other, they both think that each other doesn't like the other one. So that's kind of where we get to when they both get to New York. She tells her dad, she cries to her dad that she doesn't, he asks if she really wants to get married. She cries and says she's in love with somebody else. And he calls in Peter to meet him, and tries to figure out what he wants and if he's a good person. He comes in, and the thing that warms him up to Ellie's father is that he doesn't ask for the reward, which the father had offered a $10,000 reward for her return, and he doesn't ask for that. He doesn't want that. He just wants the $39.60 that he spent on her. And as he's walking out of the room, her dad is asking him. He keeps asking because he won't answer. He keeps asking, "Do you love my daughter? Do you love her? Do you love her?" And he makes jokes about, well, only anybody who loves her needs to have their head examined. And the last time he asks him, he's like, "Yes, but I've been known to be a little kooky too." So, and then he walks out of the room and sees her, and then leaves. They kind of have a little run in, and then he leaves. Shortly after this, the wedding starts. She runs away, and you learn that they meet up. She runs away from the wedding. Her dad is talking to her down the aisle, like, "Hey, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to." As he's walking down the aisle, and when it comes, of course, to say her vows, she runs off and gets in the car and drives off. Then the movie, that's kind of where the movie ends. There's a little bit more. It cuts to her dad a couple days later, drinking, kind of drunk, and he gets a telegram from Peter, and asks what's going on with the annulment. Why? Because this is after now since they had already gotten married, they um, they still needed an annulment. They were just having a big ceremony to celebrate her. But he asks like, what's going on? Why is it taking so long? What's going on with the annulment? And it calls him a slowpoke, and he says the walls of they're in a hotel in another state. Where does it say they were at? It doesn't say on here. I remember. Oh, they're in Michigan. Okay. They're in Michigan at a motor court, and it says the telegram says the walls of Jericho are toppling, which is funny because they're basically they want to get laid, which is a comical way to do that without ever saying the joke or showing anything or anything else. But her dad says, let him topple. And it cuts to the motor court, and you see a light, and the owners of the motor court are like, well, they wanted a blanket and a clothesline and a little trumpet. And you hear the trumpet. They kind of look over at the room. They got a video of the room. You hear the trumpet playing. You see kind of the blanket fall in the window, and the lights go out, and then that's the end of the movie. So, it's just kind of a comical, ridiculous end. It's a little slapstick, but it was a fun movie. It's an hour and 45 minutes long, so just under 2 hours. So it's not a very long watch, and it's a lot of fun. I would recommend it for just about anybody because it's just kind of slapstick, kind of comical, funny, whatever. But anyway, so that's basically the movie. So if you haven't watched it, I guess you don't have to. I just kind of told you what happens. There's more to it, but whatever. This movie is one of only 3 films to win all 5 major Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Adapted Screenplay. So obviously it did well. The other ones that have done that are the other 2 that have done that we've also watched on this podcast series, or on the other one. I don't remember at what point. Whatever. Anyway, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Silence of the Lambs. So we've seen both of those as well. I'm sure they're somewhere in the catalog, whatever thing, whatever. Anyway, apparently the actors or actresses did not think this was going to be good. And the production company, Columbia Pictures, didn't think it was going to be good. After filming, Colbert complained to her friend that she just finished the worst picture in the world. That's the report. And Columbia spent very little on advertising for the movie. Although the response to it was relatively positive. And obviously, again, it won the main 5 Academy Awards. So, I'd say that's pretty good. One thing that I saw that I thought was interesting is Clark Gable, the Oscar that he won, he gave to a kid because he thought the trophy was cool. So he just gave it away and told him that it wasn't the actual statue that meant anything. It was winning the award. And apparently that kid returned the Oscar to his family, to Gable's family, after he died, which was in 1960. He was 59 years old. So, yeah. Again, it's a fun movie. It's something that it's a romantic comedy, so it's just a kind of a rom-com. It's just fun to watch. It is in black and white, so if that and it kind of looks old. Like some of these movies don't necessarily look as old as they are. Obviously, this one's not going to be like that because it came out in the 30s. So, something that came out in the 70s, 80s, 90s may not look as old, but this actually is almost 100 years old. So it's 90 years old this year. So, but again, I don't care. It's not a. I did have had a little bit of a problem, or did have a little bit of a problem with one of the silent films because I mean, it's okay, but watching it's kind of interesting because it's not something that you normally are used to. But this was fun. I enjoyed this. I'd recommend it for just about anybody. And I think that is about it for this week, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Next week, we're watching A Streetcar Named Desire, which I obviously know the name. I've never seen it, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, again, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and I will talk to you guys next week.